That's why I went and did the breath work before I went. And it's still not fully processed, but it definitely got a lot of it out. Mm-hmm. You carry all that stuff around. I mean, the heart rate variability thing, just to finish that off, I don't feel unwell.
No, yeah.
So if I wasn't tracking it with a whoop,
you think
I'd be like,
fine. Yeah,
I'm back into it. Let's go do some hill sprints.
Yeah, exactly.
So underneath and inside the nervous system, it's so complex, right? Like, we're carrying all this stuff around all the time, all this baggage. You've got to process it. The best way to process it is to talk about it and to be open and honest about it. When I go to see the rhinos today, I'll be talking to them about being vulnerable as the strength.
Brene Brown. I've got everyone reading that book. So
listen,
reading it in
I was reading that book in bed the other night. Just the day we did the podcast. It's what I'd said in the podcast is in the book.
Yeah.
It's just true.
How psyched do you think Lauren would be if we got Brene Brown on the podcast?
God, I'd absolutely love that. I was thinking that, because we could ask her about like jiu-jitsu and stuff, couldn't we? We could link
Does
it.
she do Jitz as well?
No, but we could get her down.
She's a Texan, mate.
Get her down for a seminar.
That'd be good.
Nice. All right, what's up everyone and welcome to the North Leeds Jitz podcast, where we discuss Brene Brown's books and sometimes talk about jiu-jitsu. This week back on the show, Professor Mike.
Hello.
Coach Lauren Utley.
Hey. Oh,
Any weird noises for us today?
No.
They've stopped now, I'm back.
Yeah, I know, I'm like...
It's much more professional.
Sensible,
I've been saying to people, Lauren was very sensible on the podcast last week.
But it was it was more of a serious podcast, wasn't it?
Yeah. A few people have said to me, it got a bit silly. Thank God you're back, Professor Mike.
I don't think it got really silly. I think we had a good time, but I think it kept like a lot of good topics.
Yeah.
They didn't say
Have you watched any of them?
No one said that. No one said it.
Have you watched any of them?
No. I was a bit tied up at the time.
Yeah.
Well, you got to catch up on the sweet.
Yeah.
I was sat on the boat
What do you mean?
watching YouTube.
So we got, there's only probably about 6 episodes you got to catch up on.
We were saying, wouldn't we, it'd have been funny to like have you streamed in live on one of them. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah. Then we were going to get one of your face masks and put them up, and that didn't work. So.
Let's not talk about that. Let's not talk about that.
All right, so unfortunately Tom Broughton couldn't make the podcast today, but he did give us some excellent topics to discuss.
I feel like he's like a random addition to the podcast, like no one really knows who he is.
He's what did the Dawson boys call him, a dunny? So
is it Donny? Donny.
Yeah.
He thought it was a doona, didn't he?
Doona,
it's
something
a Donny,
like that.
I think.
Yeah, some kids
like random
slang
dude
term for a random dude.
That's what they call Tom Broughton.
And then we were at the Empire competition, and they were like, "Look, is that Donny?"
It doesn't exist.
Like, yeah, it's real.
Then they saw him in the academy the other day. Like,
I hope he gets better soon.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, was there any, before we get into those questions, are there any updates, Mike? How's your recovery going in general?
Just talking about it, weren't we? So feeling pretty good on the outside, but on the inside I'm pretty bad. My nervous system's still really shot to pieces. As a result, I think, we just discussed this offline, but as a result of the consistent, and I talked about it briefly in the last podcast, the kind of omnipresent level of stress for 46 days, 24 hours a day, that's not normal.
No.
And, you see people who, without going on a boat in the middle of the ocean, who are stressed, they get ill. I was Googling heart rate variability and how to improve it last night, and the numbers I'm kicking out, when I said, what does this mean? And it basically said, catastrophic life failure. Yeah. Like illness or death. So that's a little bit concerning.
To be fair, Google says that about everything, doesn't it? Like, I'm always Googling stuff and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die.
So I think I'll be fine, and I'll definitely, like physically myself, like my body is feeling better, sleeping better. It's just on the inside, I'm just not right. And I think it's going to take a long time to get that parasympathetic nervous system to start to dominate again. Because at the minute, it's just underneath. even though I don't feel it. But I can hear in my voice, like my voice sounds gravelly. And that's how my voice sounds before I get on stage to speak, because I'm anxious. But I'm just sat here. So I'm anxious inside for no reason.
Yeah.
It's a learned behaviour, I think.
How's the Edo Portal 30 for 30 going?
Good. I'm on day 8.
30 minutes a day, right?
Sat in a deep squat for 30 minutes a day. So I was doing sets of 2 minutes. Now I'm doing sets of 2.5 minutes. I'm still kind of holding on to something to keep myself in a good position. But my hips are definitely less painful doing it. My knees in full flexion are definitely less painful. It's just my ankle mobility has always been bad since the Marines. After Afghanistan, my feet went flat because of the angle and the weight we were carrying. And that affected my ankle mobility. So I'm in no rush. If it takes me a year to sit in a deep squat and relax, so what? It takes me 10. Trying to undo 42 years of movement, you ain't going to do it in a week or a month. It's going to take for a long time. So it's been good though. It's been good. And it's just one little goal that I can work on every day. I talk about goal setting all the time, don't I? Don't need to be anything huge, just one little thing. I can get up and go, can I do that today? And make sure I do it.
Nice. Lauren, are you smashing the gym out?
No. I was meant to go yesterday and I didn't. I was meant to go today, but I'm going to take the kids for a walk instead. I just felt really tired yesterday. And that's one thing I'm trying to get better at, is just acknowledging that I'm tired and I don't have to do everything.
Good decision, yeah.
And I used to find that really hard, to just maybe sit and do nothing. But then I think, am I going the other way now? I'm just sitting reading all the time. It's like, no one bother me. But yeah, that's something I've definitely tried to get better at, is just not being lazy, but just acknowledging that maybe I'm doing too much.
Well, less definitely can be more. I put a post on LinkedIn last week about that. About one, and I think I said it in the last podcast, I was desperate for that 1 minute off. So now, I'm slipping back at today's, I'm packed out.
Yeah.
Public speaking, meetings, coffees with, but I will carve time out to do nothing. It's so important. I think you've got to do it. And I think that acknowledgement of how you feel, as long as you're honest and it's not laziness creeping in, is really important. You don't need to, I was chatting to Lewis yesterday, Professor Lewis, and he won't mind me saying, himself is in a point where he's not struggling, but life's challenging. But there's this societal and personal pressure to continue to try and achieve more.
Yeah.
And once we realise that actually you just got to be honest with who you are and where you want to be, sometimes taking the pressure off by not doing more is the best thing you can do. So if you feel tired, you shouldn't be going to the gym. You should be sitting and reading a book. It's a good decision, man. Well done.
What
about you, T? What are you doing?
You were doing curls yesterday, weren't you?
I started working out at 11 a.m. in the reorg room, and I did my last set at 8:30.
Nice.
Yeah. I was kind of going back and forth, doing a bit of work, getting distracted, being like, I'll just take a quick little bench set, and then feel pretty sore today. So I think it worked, didn't have to carve out an hour where I'm going to go right, I've got to go David Lloyd and do all this and that. Kind of just hit a few sets during the day, and that was quite nice actually. So yeah, I'm
trying to go the other way. I'm trying to. Have you read Deep Work by Cal Newport?
No.
It's a good book. Yes, I'm trying to go the other way, and when I'm going to do something, I'm going to be ultra focused, present, and mean it, and then get the quality of work to be as high as possible in the shortest amount of time, rather than grazing. So I would graze on my emails all day, and my Instagram, and just on my phone. Now it's like, no. Check my emails twice a day for half an hour, done. And workouts, go in, set that time, do it, done. And then you can free time up to say, I'm going to go and lay down for half an hour. Or I'm going to go read a book. And so I'm going the other way for me, because I value more having the option to do not a lot and see that as actually doing something. Where before I'd be like, this is just laziness. You sat down reading a book at 2 PM. Who the hell are you? Do you know what I mean? You can't do that. That's I was chatting to Lewis about it. It's success guilt, to be able to do that. It's success guilt because you're not in an office somewhere having to, churn out output. But But doing nothing absolutely is doing something. It's being kind to yourself.
Yeah, I felt that on the last couple Sundays, being like my first like proper ones off in a while, and then I've been like, right, what do I do? Like, there should be some work to do. And I'm thinking like, oh, there's not really that much to do actually. I'm like, okay, well, guess I'll go for a walk.
That's what I'm bad at doing though, is I used to like, even if I didn't have anything to do, I'd just find stuff to do. I'd just start randomly doing random chores, or like I just couldn't sit still. And Johnny would be like, and then I'd be whinging, I'm tired, I don't sit down all day. So yeah, that's what I'm trying not to do.
All right, should we talk some Jitz?
Yeah.
You got some sweet topics for us?
Yeah, but I was going to ask, you said last about you want jiu-jitsu to be more about having fun. But have you got any like goals for yourself for jiu-jitsu? Because we talked about as goals, didn't we, for jiu-jitsu on one of our podcasts. Have you got any?
I mean, I've got like a meta goal, which is just to keep enjoying it and to just be on the mat. And not just about having fun, but like that has to be part of it. So my meta goal for jiu-jitsu is to come back, make sure my mobility is on point, make sure my body's well, and to really enjoy the process of doing jiu-jitsu without any goals other than just enjoying it. There are little personal goals within that are around specific positions that I want to be better at. I want to develop a really, really, really good close guard. And I've always gone in and out of my close guard and saw it as something I wanted to be really good at. I'm still down the path of it. I don't think I'll ever change, probably because of the era that I started my jiu-jitsu, where the fundamental basic elements of jiu-jitsu, guard pass, close guard, great mount, great back game, is what I'm all about. And I want to, for our students, but also for me, to keep being that person rather than getting distracted and I want to learn flying this and flying that and the new thing. Well, that's good for you, man.
I'm kidding.
But for me, at my stage of jiu-jitsu, I'll be second degree this year, so I've been a black belt for 6 years. I'm more about refining to the absolute limit of its potential the fundamental movements and techniques of jiu-jitsu. I think that is, for me, what the art's about, rather than continually being distracted again by the new things going on. So I think, come back, enjoy it, and just get really, really, really good at what I enjoy doing.
Nice.
Did you miss jiu-jitsu when you were rowing?
I miss it, man. I came and watched the training the other day, Monday. Was that yesterday? Still got no time appreciation at
It's
all.
Wednesday. Yeah.
It's Wednesday today. And I was really, really wanting to get on.
Yeah.
But wanting to get on as a student, like I think I need to come back and take a GB1 class to see if I can even move like that anymore.
Yeah.
Like I'm not trained. Well, it'll be 5 months.
Wow.
So that's a long time to not do anything, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I'm really excited to come back, man. I'm really, really excited to share the mats with people and to help people's journeys. I was noticing people doing stuff in your class. I'm like, I want to help. I want to just change that for you there. But I resisted the urge to jump in.
What have you've normally got a topic?
No, I was just relying on Tom's topics. His topics are always way better than ours.
Okay, so why don't we do how to measure your own progress in jiu-jitsu? Can you measure your own progress, and if so, how? What do you think?
That's a good question. I mean, we've got it just by the door there, haven't we? That you should be comparing yourself to who you were yesterday, not to someone else's today. So you should never be measuring progress on anything other than your own progress. What I would say is I think it's quite hard. It depends there's lots of ways to do this. I think it's quite hard to measure technical progress early on because you actually don't know what the technical level should be.
Yeah.
I think very early on in your jiu-jitsu journey, you can measure progress by the way you feel after training. So if you're, as you will be, broken and sore in the day after training, if that becomes less and less, then your body's adapting to being a jiu-jitsu player, and that's good progress. Maybe you are here because you want to improve your fitness and you're struggling to get through the whole Gracie Barra warm-up, one massive way to measure progress is to be able to get through that. I think it's such a big question, and I think it's completely unique to everybody. But you absolutely should be measuring your progress. But the only way to know is if you've got goals to measure it against. So the back of your attendance card should have goals written down, and you should be working towards those. If you don't know what your goal is, then you should seek out some help from an instructor, because we can set you a goal, set a goal with you. But you can't measure progress, that kind of famous quote of Seneca, isn't it? If a man knows not which port he sails to, no wind is favourable. You don't know if you're making progress unless you know which direction you're travelling. So I would say set some goals, 3 goals in your jiu-jitsu journey, and then tick them ones off. But you can definitely measure it.
I think for your technical progress, happens quite slowly, so it's not something you're going to see maybe kind of like if you're doing stuff in the gym, right? You're not going to see results overnight or in a week or 2 weeks. But you kind of always, like I'm going to tell the new students, especially when they first start live training, it's like, there's that quote about being like, sometimes you're the hammer, sometimes you're the nail. It's like, you're going to be in the nail for a long time, but then you're going to be a blue belt one day, and then there'll be that person that just starts live training, and you're like, oh, now I can do all these things that used to happen to me. And that's like an interesting mark of progress, because it's that whole thing about a blue belt should be able to defend themselves against someone of similar size. I don't know what Helio thought a blue belt should be. That's like a real mark of progress, because now you'll gain the confidence of, I could actually defend myself against someone of similar size in some kind of grappling altercation. I think we were talking about the ownership you can take in your own training on the MOT. Like, I think videoing your rolls, I think that can be a really good way of marking your progress. You could, if you've done that for like a week for a year, and you go back and watch, your rolls from a year ago to now, you should see like a big difference between how you're reacting in positions and things like that. I think one of the main things is your training partners. You always need, iron sharpens iron kind of thing. You're going to need that buddy that is there with you, trying to get better at the same time, and you bounce off of each other, and you're showing each other little techniques, and you'll kind of get better together. And there'll be times when one of you is a bit better, and that brings you up, and then you get a bit better, and then you bring them up. And that's a nice way of like tracking your progress as well. Like, how are you helping others, and how are they helping you, and how are you getting better together?
Yeah, just to make me think about something there. I think actually, when you're talking about measuring progress, you should be probably looking at really broad spectrum pieces, rather than being, how much better am I at doing a closed guard armbar than I was this time last year. It's too specific. I would say that on being a good teammate, I would say movement's huge. So if you were going to look at your rollback, I wouldn't encourage you to look at it back from a technical perspective, because perhaps you're not able to see it from that degree of granularity that perhaps we'll be able to do. But how much more fluently are you moving? What does your movement pattern look like? That's something that we can always keep working on. Something I'm going to be working on a lot.
Are you more relaxed?
Are you more relaxed? Yeah. Like I said, how do you feel the next day? Can you do 6 rounds? And the other thing I would say as well, in terms of progress, don't discount just being more consistent as being huge. So did you struggle to be consistent to come to training twice a week, but now you've come 3 times a week for 6 months? That's huge progress. You're going to naturally, as you just rightly put it, improve in lots of different areas that you won't necessarily see. So don't focus too narrowly on progress. See it in big, broad terms. Consistency of training, physical feeling before and after, before even. Were you super nervous? Is your nervous system now deregulated? Good movement, being a better person. And the rest just happens. Don't chase the technique. Don't chase the little nuances. That comes, like I was just saying, when you've been training for 20 years. And I'm chasing that beautiful, precise, easy closed guard armbar that no one can defend against. You're not doing that at white belt and blue belt and purple belt.
Similar to, I think we say on the MOT as well, there's new students, of a certain type will want to try and know everything, every rule, every like etiquette, every like little bit of information that goes around the sport of jiu-jitsu. It's like, it's pretty unknowable there's still things about the rules that I learn. Like this year, I learned about, different ways on the point scoring position. Like I've been training like 5 years now. Like if that person wants to try and learn every little bit of etiquette and rule, in jiu-jitsu, it's going to be too overwhelming for them. So you got to like you're saying, it's almost via osmosis. It's just, you're on the mat and you're going to learn things as you go, and you're going to get better as you go without really having to always be too switched on and focus about, in this case, all right, I'm going to learn this thing every week, or I'm going to focus on this thing every week. There's a lot of jiu-jitsu just happens because you show up and you're consistent.
Right. And I was chatting to one of our newest students recently, who's a friend of ours. And I've not had a chance to speak to him because I've been away. This started whilst I was away. And for some people who are listening, perhaps you've not heard me say this stuff before, but like, you've really got to enjoy the white belt journey, because, I mean, for me as your head instructor, there's no pressure on you whatsoever. You are shit at jiu-jitsu and you're supposed to be shit at jiu-jitsu right now. So don't be trying to be in a rush to be great, because you're not going to be great. It's going to take you years. So from the progress side, don't put so much pressure on yourself. Yeah. Just show up, have a massive smile on your face, be the best training partner you can be consistent, enjoy it, and the rest will happen. And also, don't miss on the goal side of things, as I talk about having broad goals, and I say broad goals, and I think what I mean by that is goals that take a long time to develop. So movement, you're not going to change that in a month or 6 months or a year. It's going to take a long, long time. Having those goals, which take years and years and years to accomplish, are far more fulfilling than I've just been doing this one technique over and over and over and over, and now I can do whatever triangle there is from Spider Guard. It's the only thing you can do. It's the only thing you've been doing. Be broader. Take your time, relax, come in, show up for what jiu-jitsu really is, and that is helping other people and helping yourself develop on a really broad scale and becoming a better person. And all the other stuff just magically appears. You'll be hitting that Spider Guard triangle before you even know it.
I think it's really important. I think a few things there. It's like, when I think back, I think the white belt stripes, even though you're like so wanting to get that blue belt, are actually the most fun stripes you get. Like they're the most enjoyable. I think you get the most excited about them because, it's new. It's like a big mark of recognition between someone that's walked in on their first day of jiu-jitsu and now you're slightly different kind of thing. And there's no pressure on you. Whereas like once you got coloured belts, there's like more expectations on you. Obviously it's from other people and it's perceived. And then I also think, I maybe think of a Tom DeBlas's post he put out a while ago about white belts don't love jiu-jitsu, they kind of lust jiu-jitsu, because real love is when you've already gone through hardship and bad times, like the start of a relationship where like everything's cool, like you're learning all about each other for the first few months kind of thing. You don't love that person yet because you've not really been through anything together. But then when you've been in it in the sport for a few years, you go through your blue belt blues, you go through like failing, not feeling like you're progressing for a while, you've gone through hard times, and you make it through that, and you eventually maybe one day get your black belt and stuff like that. That's when you can say you love the sport, because you've stuck at it long enough where you really understand what it is and what it is you're doing, and then you can spend the rest of your life with it. But initially, you're in this kind of sexy like lust phase where like everything's new, everything's exciting, a little bit of knowledge increases your knowledge 100%,
So you can definitely measure progress, going back to the question, but don't rush and don't be too detail oriented.
Cool. Do you want me to hit you?
Oh, and if you're unsure and you are a detail oriented person who desperately wants to see progress, just come and talk to me or T. That's what we're here for, isn't it?
For sure.
We can help you one-to-one. We can set goals for you. I'll set some goals for you. No problem. You'll be rowing an ocean in no time.
One-legged.
One-legged ocean, right?
What you got else for us?
What can you do? What other kind of training can you do to assist your jiu-jitsu? Do you think there's other stuff you can be doing?
For sure, yeah. Do you want to go first or me to go first?
You go first.
I think the biggest thing you can do is to assist your jiu-jitsu and whichever type of training this is for you, because it will vary for different people, is do a program that prevents you from getting injured. So that'll be mobility for some people, like getting better at end ranges. That's going to be strengthening type work for other people. For most people, it'll be a combination of both. But whatever can keep you on the mats the longest will benefit your jiu-jitsu, because you're not going to get better at jiu-jitsu by getting your cardio better by hitting a 6 mile every week or something like that. But if you can consistently stay on the mats due to lack of injury and lack of illness, that will have a big impact on your jiu-jitsu. You're only going to get better at jiu-jitsu by doing jiu-jitsu, basically. And unfortunately, it's combat sport. I think that goes maybe into the next question we're talking about, but you're going to pick up little knocks and stuff. And if you can minimize that as much as possible, then your training time over the course of a year, and that might even just be when you're on the mat, lowering your intensity down so you are less likely to get an injury.
Yeah.
Your overall training time in that one given year will be vastly more than if you trained really hard, then get an injury every 3 months, have to take a month out, and then it's like stop and start. Yeah. And you got to catch up where you were before, and then it's like start again. It's a bit of a bad cycle you can get into, where I've been in it, where it's you get injured, so you train, so you get back onto the mat, you try to get back on the mats as quickly as you can. You want to make up for lost time, so you train as hard as you can. And then because you've not even in like that level of conditioning for the training that you're doing, you then pick up an injury or an illness again, and then the cycle continues.
Yeah. The word I would use, I wouldn't change anything what you've said. I think it's brilliant. The one word I would use is robustness. I think one thing that the Marines does is it makes you a really robust physical and mental being. And we'll talk about injuries in a minute. I've never had a bad injury in jiu-jitsu 20 years.
Touch wood.
I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening. Like an injury that's kept me off the mat for time. Yeah. It's not happened because I've approached jiu-jitsu in the right way, I believe, but also because I've just got a robust body because I've pushed myself for many, many years before. If you've not done that kind of training, starting now to complement your jiu-jitsu by making yourself injury-proof is, or less likely to be injured, is really important. We're probably not the best placed people to talk specifically about this, but we have probably the greatest collection of S&C coaches in our region, in our student base. You know, and I won't list them because I'll miss someone off. But, you know, Johnny and Sam and Way and any of those people who've got years of experience, conditioning athletes, ex-professional athletes, Ollie Goss, scientific background on that. You know, any of these people will give their time to help you if you need it. Speaking specifically about robustness, if we talk about the row, you said rowing in an ocean one-legged. That's because I hurt my knee ligament on the first day or two. I was rowing one leg. One thing that really helps in a sport like jiu-jitsu or ocean rowing, where nothing is in a perfect plane, it's always slightly off kilter, or there's weight moving, is to have a really good ability to work unilaterally. So if you are going to train weights, you should definitely be doing one-legged stuff a lot. And anti-rotational work. So that's not sit-ups, that's banded presses, that's banded walkouts, that's chops. Anything that's going to move your core and brace against the rotational force is going to be massively important because that's exactly what happens all the time in jiu-jitsu. You're never pulled in a perfect line. You're always pulled off a line. So to be able to brace against that, and it's going to keep you, you know, moving forward. So again, if you want more information on that, we can bring one of our students in or a number of them and we can talk for an hour about the best things to do. It depends what your focus is though, right? Like if your focus is to be better at jiu-jitsu, you got to be on the mat. Marcelo Garcia didn't do any strength training, but he was on the mat 7 days a week. And you can build a resilient and robust body for jiu-jitsu on the mat. It's probably the best thing to do. Talking about the Ido Portal 1330. To be better at a deep squat, you need to sit in a deep squat. It's not banded stuff with your hips. It's getting to the position you want to be better at. And if you want to be better at jiu-jitsu and more resilient, got to do jiu-jitsu, man.
I agree. I think on the more like, that's very like practical advice we've given. I think if we're going more like esoteric out there, I think for me, jiu-jitsu is like a philosophy expressed physically. So I think there are times like where I feel like my jiu-jitsu has improved because I've like read a book, or I've gone for a walk and I've really thought about my jiu-jitsu. Or I think back when Victor was here and you guys were talking about jiu-jitsu and life, and like I felt that podcast, like you hearing you guys talk about it and thinking about the parallels of jiu-jitsu and the other things, like deepened my understanding of jiu-jitsu. It's that Musashi quote of know the way broadly and you see it in all things. And I think if that question is on that kind of level, like what can you do to outside of jiu-jitsu to help your jiu-jitsu? And I think if you are a student keep that student mindset in everything that you do. Read philosophy, read, I like fantasy books.
Brene Brown.
Read Brene Brown. She'll help you with your Berimbolo game. I think there's lots you can do to become. Ultimately, we try to become better people on the mats, and there's tons of things you can know. I think your charity work is an expression of jiu-jitsu. I think if you go outside and pick up a bit of litter and try and make your community a better place, that's jiu-jitsu for me. So I think there's a lot of things you can do around that as well.
Nice.
Yeah, I've said this before, but some of my best privates with Victor, I'd drive to Nottingham for 2.5 hours and I'd sit on the mat with him for an hour and just talk. Didn't do any jiu-jitsu. But I was building a relationship with him. I was building an understanding of how he views jiu-jitsu and all his knowledge. And that for me, was time well spent, man. So surround yourself by good people. You're the average of the, 5 people you spend the most amount of time with. And there'll be people, when we started in the Marines, there was always guys you would see in the unit or in the MOD when I worked there or anywhere in life. And you think, I'd like to be a bit more like that. Go spend time with them.
Yeah.
Turn up to the class that they turn up to. Send them a message on WhatsApp, dude, I really liked the way you roll. I don't know you yet, but do you mind if I have a roll with you next time we're in? Can we grab a coffee? Like, our students will say yes to that. Yeah.
We kind of crossed over to the next one, though, haven't we? But
the injury.
do you think you can prevent?
You can train forever without getting injured. I think there's always the risk of injury. You can't take that away because it's a contact sport, and sometimes crazy stuff happens. You fall a certain way, someone slips, or
what do you think is the most common cause of injury? Like reason for
weight
people
falling
getting
on
injured?
weight. In my opinion, when weight falls on weight, that's why stand up, for instance, is probably the highest risk. That is where most injuries occur. Second to that, I would say people not tapping soon enough and trying to fight out of submissions. But you can absolutely go for, I'm proof of it. You can go for decades of training without taking any significant periods of time off the mat if you've got a robust body, but more importantly, if you approach jiu-jitsu in the right way.
I think it's important to categorize injuries. Like Danaher has a really good instructional that's for free, and I'd recommend people pick it up. Although it's mainly geared towards instructors, I reckon. It's called Train Safe, and he talks about the biggest causes of injuries that he's seen in 30 years of teaching and stuff like that. And he kind of divides injuries into 3 categories, I believe. But the ones we all think about, catastrophic injury, kind of you tie your toshi, and then someone sits on your knee goes in, and you tie your MCL, ACL, and you're out for a year kind of thing, need surgery. And then there's the minor knocks and bumps and bruises that we all kind of have in jiu-jitsu and accept and just train through. So it's kind of like a cliche, people ask you before you roll, you got any injuries, anything you want me to avoid kind of thing. And I would just say I've gone through minor injuries, done my wrist, broke a rib, but it's nothing that's kept me off of the mats for a long time. Or look at Professor Khalil with his back that was messed up. it's not a catastrophic injury where he has to like stay away. Like he still managed to find a way to work around injury, which I think's really important. I think a lot of people in jiu-jitsu, if they feel like if I have any injury, broken a toe or you have to stop everything. Whereas I feel like if you really want to stay on the mats, you can stay on the mats with speak to your instructor, speak to your training partners. You don't have to do every aspect of the whole class. You can train around a lot of the minor injuries that we get. And then there's just knocks and bumps that you're going to get. Yeah, if you've been doing spider guard all week, your fingers are probably going to hurt a little bit. Or, your lower back might hurt a little bit if someone's been holding you in guard a lot. But
they're not injuries, are they?
Yeah,
they are part and parcel of partaking in the contact sport.
Yeah.
And their life.
That's
you
it.
get knocked. You can't give in.
No.
You got to keep going through it. But you got to know the difference, I think. And if you're unsure, again, we've got GPs, students. One thing I will guard against is if you do have a knock or a bump or an injury, if you go and see your normal GP, they will tell you to take 6 weeks off and do nothing.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying don't go to your doctor, but I'm saying if you want real advice about jiu-jitsu, I wrote a blog on this, by the way, it's on our website about injuries in jiu-jitsu. So you can go read that if you want more information, but just come speak to us. And we can hook you up with someone who trained jiu-jitsu, is a blue belt and a GP, and he will give you the best advice.
Yeah. And you can look at that Danaher instructor as well. I recommend it for most people just because you'll know how to train safe with your training partners, which will give you confidence that knowledge dispels the kind of fear of potentially maybe accidentally injuring someone because you did something silly in the mats because you weren't educated enough to know what not to do. Luckily, the rule sets that we provide in the academy anyway, okay, you're not going to jump guard until you're at least a blue belt and then only in competition team or certain takedowns we don't allow and things like that. So I think it's fairly well set up to avoid any catastrophic injuries.
Well, we put those parameters in place, don't we? So we always make sure that instructors are monitoring the mat. And it's why we always say, 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10. Mm-hmm. That's partly for your own technical proficiency, or to be able to have that skill acquisition, but it's also equally because we don't want it. If you're going 10 out of 10, that's when injuries happen. Yeah. And they tend to happen more, of course, with people who are less experienced. So I can have my most intense roles with T or with Professor Lewis, Professor Khalil, I'm never getting injured. It's the safest role in the world and my most intense because those people move in a predictable, fluid, well put together way and they are present while they're doing it. When you're rolling as a white belt with a white belt, it is violent, unpredictable movement, which has the highest propensity for injury. So that's why in the academy, we're always trying to just and if one of us says, calm down, slow down, we're not being nasty to you, we're trying to protect you. Mm-hmm.
It's like the MOT stuff we talked about around that comment around stand-up training. Like, silly, how come you don't let us stand-up train until we're 3 stripes? It's like, I don't even want to do stand-up training with you when you're 2 stripes. So why do you want to do it with someone else that's 2 stripes? Like, I'm worried about that. This person's going to injure me. So you should really be worried if this person's going to injure you.
But they don't notice it, and that's the thing. With greatest respect, you are unconsciously incompetent at that point. You do not know. And it can be frustrating because you've got a little bit of knowledge and you have read loads of instructionals and you've got it all downloaded and you're looking ready to go. You've got to defer to people who know best. I had a conversation with someone yesterday who wants to row the ocean solo. And, I'll say this, well, in fact, Duncan said this to me today, my coach. I'm probably at the moment, the best placed solo ocean rower in the world to talk about ocean rowing with the way I've done it and because I've just come off the ocean, right? I surrounded myself with coaches straight away. And I had 20 years of physical training and achieving challenges and expeditions and operations. First thing I did, got an S&C coach to program me and got an ocean rowing coach. And then went and did some breath work with a breathwork coach. Like, you've got to default that decision making to people like me and like you. You don't know better. If you're asking for stand-up training as a white belt, with the greatest respect, don't know what you're talking about. So allow us to guide you in that. And then you'll be safe and you'll be training forever. Some academies will let you. That don't mean they're right.
No.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like now with the more people doing the stand-up training, I feel safer than ever, you know, like I know, especially with like Josh or Ollie, like we were doing the Nogi yesterday and didn't feel like any kind of silly takedowns were going ahead or anything like that. So I felt like super happy just to stay on the feet for a little while. And that's a nice feeling once we can all bring our levels up, and not just for standing training, of course, for any other parts of jiu-jitsu where there might be like bigger risks of injury. Like once education around the whole academy like improves, then we all just train safer. And I think those are the two biggest aspects of like what we're trying to get. It's like keep everyone injury free and keep them having fun. And if you can do those two things, then you got a great academy, really.
There's one way you can absolutely minimise injury as well. And it comes down to intensity. I'm not saying you should drop your intensity below, you know, whatever that level is, 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10. But if you're doing it with a smile on your face, I guarantee you are way less likely to injure yourself and someone else because you are having fun. You are flowing, you're enjoying it, and you're there for what it is, which is the feeling of doing jiu-jitsu. If you're there with the mindset of you're trying to win, that's when problems happen. Now, in competition team, we might ask you to do that. And certainly when you go and compete, you have to do that. But here, for 99.9% of our students, 99.9% of the time, you should be training with a massive smile on your face and just loving that you're doing something remarkable, which is challenging yourself, helping someone else, and being there for being there. That's what it's all about, man. Do that, safe as houses for 20 years.
One of the things on the robustness that I forgot to mention that was that's probably one of the things I'm most proud of about what we've done here is the robustness of the kids comp team. Because, you know, these are kids that spent a couple of years in lockdown, and then when we first started the comp team, you'll remember, it's like every week it was like off the mats, go see mum, you know, they've got a little knock, got a little, like a tiny little cut on the lip or something because they took a little, and then their fingers hurt. And you had to like have words with them like, look guys, this is serious training, you know, it's a combat sport type thing. And eventually they kind of clicked with them and they understood, and they were like, and now they're just little monsters. You like throw them into a wall, like they're banging heads, you know, they're like, yeah, let's go.
Kobe face planted.
Yeah, you're like, oh yeah, but that's, you get to see those moments of courage. So for instance, like we had 2 kids come out, Kobe being one of them, he got collar drags, like didn't like break fall with his face.
So brutal.
And his whole face was red. I could see his tears welling up. And like, I know if that was 6 months, a year ago, Kobe probably would have stepped off the mats and been like,
never going again.
But he just like fought for it, finished out his round, shook his partner's hand, and that was it. Like, see, that kind of courage and ability to go through adversity, and yeah, it's going to be tough, but we're going to just keep going. I'm really proud of their development.
It's self-belief, man, and that's not just a physical self-belief. That translates to all aspects of your life. And again, you know, philosophically about jiu-jitsu, we've talked about this forever, man. It is a mirror of you in the world when you're on that mat. You are naked. Everyone sees who you are. We don't care what car you turn up in. We don't care what job you've got, how big your house is, or the fact you're scraping together pennies to come here. We're all the same. And you get to see exactly who you are. And the adversity you go through on the mat only benefits every aspect of your life. Pulling yourself up off the mat is pulling yourself up off the floor when you've been sacked or your partner's left you, because that stuff happens. Or, you know, someone you love is really poorly. Pulling yourself up, getting out of bed and getting on with it is what we're all about. And that's what you teach them there, man. That is the real lesson in life, that you are more capable than you think you are. You can't lose in life when you're like that. Because life's tough, man. Life's going to keep throwing you into a wall. We don't go throw kids into the walls. We get that out of there. But you're going to face plant, aren't you? You're going to face plant. You're going to fail. That is going to happen. Let's see you stand back up again. Dust yourself off and go again.
Yeah.
Me and Tom were on about that one for what we've like taken from it off the mat. We said that, like, we were saying when you're struggling with stuff, because jiu-jitsu is like, I was saying, it's one of those things where it's constantly up and down, but you still want to do it, which is a weird thing, really. So I was saying, when you come up against stuff in life, you realise that you can like ride it out and
It's a word of the week, isn't it? Growth mindset. It's like, it's going to be tough times. You're not going to be good at it and you're going to fail, but you're going to keep sticking with it until you eventually get to where you want to be with it.
It's probably I mean, for most people, most of the time, coming to training is probably the hardest thing they do in the week. You might not see it as that. Probably is. Probably ask the most of you. I think in most aspects.
I said at a couple of end of classes, like just like, I think it was Saturday morning I was saying like, be really proud of yourself, because for a Saturday morning, you're gonna have to find a really big radius before you find people that were doing things that were harder than what you were doing this morning.
Correct.
There might be people doing equally as hard things, but I've done some pretty difficult things, and you know, showing up to, you know, we don't think about it now, but the fear of the person coming in for their first class and then putting your like ego on the line because someone's going to try and tap you out, and then the physical aspect of it and the learning aspect of it. And when you put all these things together, it might only just be, for us, it's a GB1 class. It's like the most fundamental thing. But for a person off the street to try and do that is equally, I think it's equally as hard as anyone doing a hard striking class. I think it's equally as hard as someone going out into the Dales and doing a long bike ride. I think it's equally as hard as anyone going out and hitting a heavy CrossFit session, any of those kind of things. So be really proud of the difficulties that you go through in jiu-jitsu, both mentally and physically, I think.
Yeah, well.
All right.
I've run out of topics.
It's okay, we've hit 45, 46 minutes already. So
should we just say then what's coming next? Because I think that's important, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
There are more and more academies springing up in Leeds. So I know of 2 now. There was 1. So Professor Stefan, I've learned, is maybe going and starting something. And I've just bumped into Liam Can from Scramble. I didn't have a lot to say to him, you'll be surprised to hear. But he's splitting from Scramble and starting something at Seacroft, right next to JD and Premier Martial Arts. Ultraflex and some MMA thing.
I heard about that.
There's going to be more and more jiu-jitsu, which is only a good thing. You know, we're happy about that, and we wish everybody who goes off on their own journey in jiu-jitsu good luck. There's going to be more and more choice for people. So, you know, if this is the first place you've ever trained, you're lucky to be training somewhere like this. I know that. Not just because it's my academy, our academy, but because I've trained at hundreds of places all over the world. This is unique. But if you're unsure, go train. Go train somewhere else. Come tell us how much you enjoy coming back here. We're going to be doing a lot in terms of the schedule. We're trying to put on a lunchtime class every day. We're considering putting new classes on a Thursday night. So even more value. I'm obviously coming back into the business, and that's hopefully exciting for a lot of people. So lots going on. The GBF, hopefully some outreach stuff for women. We want to do some more for that. And the future's bright at GBRL, man.
Absolutely. Exciting year. Okay. Well, thank you, Professor Mike.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, Lauren. And until next week.